Okay, so here we are, just 2 weeks after the launch of the Indomitus box set, which kicked off the 9th edition of Warhammer 40,000. And now is a great time to look at the state of the game and take an objective look at what Games Workshop has done and what it has on the horizon. As we get into this, I'd like to invite you to join me on Twitch Sunday nights to chat about all things 40k or anything related to gaming, travel, food. Obviously, I like food, but just come and hang out with me on Twitch. Link to that is in the description below. Okay, so let's get started with the negative aspects of both the new edition and Games Workshop's handling of things. 1. The rules for terrain are far more complex than we've seen in a long time. Spoiler alert, this is also going into the positives. I think the extra complexity adds a fair bit of additional data you have to remember as you play, and that could be daunting to a new player. So that's why it's getting slotted here into the negatives. The second item, which is probably bigger than the first, is the new app. Frankly, I'm excited that they've finally stepped up and put something into the digital space for us to use. However, obviously there were some flaws with it out of the gate. No list builder to begin with, and there were some challenges with the rules. It wasn't launching on iOS to begin with, and some people don't think that the $5 a month subscription is worth it for some of those features. I personally don't think cost is an issue and feel the price is fair, but I think it would have been better if they were more upfront about this with the initial advertising about the application, and that they should have launched with the list builder right away. That was a major miss on their part, and they definitely had time to prepare for that. So I'll give them a pass on some of these things, but not on missing the list building aspect of the application. Third is Indomitus availability. And this issue misstep is not that big of one really, since they addressed it, but the initial availability of the Indomitus box set and causing retailers panic over limited supply should have been addressed earlier on. As soon as they saw the retail orders coming in, they should have either let them know and said, hey, we're gonna limit you to 45 or 50 copies right out of the gate, rather than waiting for some of these bigger retailers ordering 200 box sets and then being told, sorry, you're only gonna get a quarter of it. Now, they did step up and allow a made-to-order version, but it really should have been let known right out of the gate. And while it does help prevent the secondary scalping market from profiting too much off of it, I think that they could have done better on this. I also think that they should have announced and made for available for pre-order on the day of the Indomitus release the new Get Started box set. But not making those initial starter sets available, I'm sure, increased panic, and maybe it was their goal to increase some demand, especially given that the starter sets themselves contain considerably less models than Indomitus does. But obviously at still a lower price, and honestly, now that we've seen the pricing, the value is still there. And the fourth item, and this one is probably one that many of you won't agree with, I think the delay of the codexes is a mistake. I personally feel that along with Indomitus and the starter sets, the new Necron Codex and the new Space Marine Codex should have dropped at the same time, or should have been scheduled to drop in August. Making us wait until October to find out really some of the synergies that are going to exist feels like you're drawing things out a little bit too much. And really it means that there's probably, while there'll be new releases of models between now and October, I would have much preferred to have had the Codex first and then seen things like the fortification and those buggies come after I've got the Codex, so I can evaluate their value before I make a purchase on them. So that's kind of where I stand on the negative aspects. Why don't we flip and take a look at the positives? So the first one, the Indomitus box set. It is probably one of the best values Games Workshop has given us in years. And they were quite upfront at the beginning about it not being an intro set. I do feel that they kind of missed that after the initial announcement. So maybe they should have carried on with telling us, hey, it's a limited edition set or it's not a starter set. But most of their advertising after the initial push just focused on, hey, we got all these awesome new models, which is great, but it could have been handled a bit better, I think. Second, the rules in this edition are probably amongst the best. I talked about how complex the terrain is in the negatives, but I really think, especially for the advanced players and for veterans, it's going to give us a lot of additional expansion on the playability, and from the standpoint of tournament runners, a good TO is going to have their terrain set up and defined in advance. So there's little room for argument between competitive players about what this ruins represents. And the rules are very clear that once you stack the various bits about hard cover or dense cover and all of the different keywords, you have a very clear example of what that terrain is intended to represent. So third, chapter approved Grand Tournament rules. Games Workshop looks to be stepping back into the lead for the competitive scene, and with this additional set of books, they'll keep the annual nature of chapter approved and provides them a way for them to regularly retool and refresh tournament play, which I think will be great for players, especially new competitive players. I think ITC has done a great job shepherding the competitive scene for the last 10 years, and hopefully this refresh will fit well with what they've been doing and will allow a seamless transition. Thankfully, the pandemic means there's not a lot of these big events happening, so there's a good opportunity for a smooth transition to Games Workshop's lead, hopefully supported by ITC. Number 4, the app. Yep, the app has great potential. I think they have the opportunity to really take this to the next level, not just as a list builder, but to be part of a bigger tournament organizer kit. So if they get that app to plug into a TO website so that all lists are submitted to the site, and then the TO can, on the day of the tournament, release those lists so you can see what your opponent's playing. Maybe just round by round you can see what your opponent has, or you can review the whole shooting match at once. Everyone have access to everyone's list. It would totally reduce the amount of accidental list shenanigans, or worse yet, deliberate list shenanigans, and it would mean the tournament organizer would have to spend way less time reviewing these lists for accuracy and rules conformity. With luck, this is something that Games Workshop has on the books and just hasn't told us about. But in the meantime, if all lists are built using the GW app, you can at least trust that everyone is using the same playing field. Nothing against Battlescribe, but it is too open source and potentially allows for shenanigans as a result of that. That's just my 2 cents. We have 3 levels of intro set on the way, and as I mentioned before, we don't have them yet. They've only just went for pre-order yesterday as of recording of this video, and so it's not really fair to judge them. However, based on the price of each of them, I feel they represent good value and will be a great place, especially the Command Edition at 195 Canadian dollars. I think it's a great value. The rules and the models definitely equate that $200 price point, plus you get the terrain for free. I'm seriously contemplating picking one up because the lightweight 187 page rule book would be a lovely addition to this 400 page behemoth, which I didn't talk about it, but this is personally, I think, the best designed rulebook Games Workshop has made for Warhammer 40k. I've got every edition from 3rd till 9th now, and this has been my favorite to peruse. It's my favorite to use as a reference. Well done, Games Workshop. Keep up the good work. Overall, I think Warhammer 40,000 is in the best state it has been for a new player, probably since I got into the hobby at 3rd edition, when the core rulebook included all of the rules for the armies that were available, and rules for armies that weren't yet available, and has a great potential to be even better. I think Games Workshop is making huge steps forward, And even if they slip up some of the time, we as a community should be encouraged by this. And while we should always hold the companies we support to a high standard, we need to remember two critical things. First, these companies are led by people who are just as fallible as you and I. And second, they do have a requirement to be profitable to continue to exist, to provide us better rules, tournament organization, and phenomenal models. They cannot simply give us everything we want on demand, and definitely they cannot do it for free. Maybe they could be a little bit cheaper than they are, but we have to allow that they've actually done the math on their profitability. That's it for this state of the game for Warhammer 40k, and expect regular updates as they release new rules and new codexes, and we can examine just exactly how on track Games Workshop is for keeping this as balanced as possible. Thanks for joining me in this video. If you enjoyed it, hit the thumbs up button and get subscribed. If you didn't, please leave a comment letting me know what you'd like to see in a future State of the Game video that would make it more valuable to you. Till next time, remember to work your wonk, wash your hands, and as always, keep it geeky.